Well, thank you, everybody, and happy Friday. Want to thank everybody for joining us on the call. My name's Arthur Tang. I'm with SG Western, and I am the rep covering Aurora with your ELB headquarters in California. And I want to just hand it over to, looks like Paul. Paul, are you ready
Yeah.
for your big show? Yeah, Paul's with Aurora Media. Multimedia, and he is one of the founders of the company. And we have the privilege of hearing straight from the man, and I'll let him introduce the company and the product.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for your time today. I'm Paul Harris, and I'm one of the owners of the company. So we're going to be demonstrating today is the Tauri Temperature tablet. This is the 15-inch version I'm showing here. We have a 10-inch and a 21-inch. The only difference between any of them, the size. Other than that, they all do the same thing. So the main reason for the size difference is just a matter of what you're going to intend to use it for. One of the biggest differences about this panel is its ability to customize itself. So it does have the ability to choose where you place things, how you place it, the messaging you give people, even right down to digital signage. So because of that, some people feel the 21-inch is better because they're using it more for digital signage, and other people just don't use the features, or they just feel the space isn't necessary, and they just use a smaller panel because of the space allotted to them. So that's the main differences of why the different sizes in these things. But the capability is exactly the same. I'll begin shortly. By the way, what's the background of your company, and what are you looking to get out of this, so I know how to present to cater towards what you're doing?
Well, I think, Paul, you're going to have quite a mix. I'm looking at the attendee list here, and we've got folks from education, we've got folks from city government, we've got folks from small business. Gotcha. So I know that's difficult from a presenter perspective, but I think if you can give a gamut of use case scenarios, and then we can open up the floor for some specific questions and things like that if somebody has a scenario you haven't covered.
Okay, not a problem. Bear with me. I lost my window. What I was trying to do is open up a chat window, because I was going to tell anybody if they have any questions to chat it in, and I'll be more than happy to do it. But for some reason, I lost my window. I don't see my window anymore. Bear with me. Sorry, experiencing technical difficulties. So bear with me a second.
Looks like we can self-serve that on our end, Paul. There's a chat button at the bottom of all of our interfaces, and we can go ahead and use that.
Yeah, no, that's not my problem right now. My problem is I can't see myself anymore on the screen, so I have no idea where this camera is pointing at. So I'm trying to figure out what happened to my picture-in-picture. It's totally gone since I hit the chat button. So that's the first time I've ever seen that happen. I apologize. Give me a second. I'm trying to just... That's interesting. Bear with me a second here. Huh. Well, if anybody's got any good ideas on how to find your preview, I've never had this happen before, but I'm actually missing my preview. I'm going to try to stop my video and restart it again and see if that fixes it. It has not.
Hey, Paul, maybe click on your speaker view.
Yeah, let me see here. Let's see. Okay, now I got myself. Yeah, that was it. Somehow it fell off of it on my side. Okay, good. Well, that fixed it. So do not rely on us for Zoom technology. Not a good thing. Temperature tablet, AV over IP, we're golden. So now that we're back on cue here, so I'm going to show you what's going on here. I'm going to zoom a little bit more into here. I'm going to actually do it two ways. I'm going to first show you how I interact, and then I'll zoom in so you can see what's going on the screen. So right now I'm standing, you can probably see me through there as well. I'm probably about 6 feet away, and it's already starting to read my temperature, and I can come up, and it's reading me. It's reading me at about, it's averaging somewhere about like 98.5 degrees, and that's what it's doing right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. Okay, can you see the values on there?
Yes.
Okay, so as I walk in to it, you'll see it's now starting to read me over here. Now this right now is doing a real-time mode where it's just, you'll see it fluctuate. We do have an averaging mode. It's just not in this particular firmware that was in this panel, but what it does is it detects the forehead area and then it will lock on. So normally we'll say scanning, and then as soon as it sees the forehead, it'll lock on, and then it will tell you what your temperature is, and it'll average it out every 2 to 3 seconds to make the scanning ability a little bit easier to read. This is all customizable, so you have the ability to get rid of this information, resize the window, put signage information based on conditions of whether it passed, whether it didn't pass, and so forth. So it's very customizable. The initial firmware that we sent out was very plain vanilla. You walk up, it works out of the box. But this is actually, you're looking at one of the very first versions that have Reacts built into it. So this can actually serve up web pages into your cell phone, into a PC, and you can make those web pages look any way you want to look at it. And if you have multiple panels, you can even have one panel looking at other panels and then pulling that information back to a centralized web page. You could store data if you choose to do so. So you could say, at this time, when this person came up to it, this was their temperature, and start people counting and give a good analytical of what's going on through the entire day. So yeah, I'm going to do the same thing right now. I'm going to walk up to it, and as you can see, as long as you're within 3 feet to about 1 feet 8 inches, it'll start reading the temperature. And that's what this panel is doing. Now, to simulate what happens when it has a fault, I'm going to give myself 101.6 degree fever. So I'm going to do that by changing it to 95.6. That'll create the difference of 3 degrees to show what would happen if I had 101.6. The volume is adjustable in case you want to know why is the volume adjustable to different levels for the annoying beep that it can give off when it detects a fault. And I'm going to show you. So as you can see right now, I come into the field and it immediately saw that my temperature is elevated. And there it is. You read the same temperature. The only difference now is it made a flag. So, hold on 1 second. We also have an HDMI out on it. So if you want to look at it remotely, aside from using web pages, we also have the ability to do this through a secondary monitor using the HDMI. Oops, sorry about that. I'm rebooting it right now. So as you can see on here, this right now, I get it. Sorry about that. Got to zoom out a little bit on this one. What you're looking at is what happens when I take it out of the app itself. What you can see here is secondary monitor is reflecting what's on the primary. So you have the ability to actually have dual monitors, so an operator can just use a regular, this is just a regular 1080p screen off the shelf from LG, and we plugged it into the HDMI output of this thing. The firmware is upgradable through over the air, through pushing it, You do not have to use Ethernet. Out of the box, it will come working where you just plug it into the wall and it comes up and works. You do have the ability, the integrator can go in, customize it any way that you want, and then it will, pretty much look any way you choose for it to look like. Any questions so far? Let's see. See how far does a second person need to be waiting to not confuse the. Okay, so one of the things that we're working on, which is going to happen in the next, let's do something here. Before I continue on, let me just get rid of the alert. Otherwise, this thing's going to keep. Okay, so one of the things is it'll be ready in about a week, no more than 2. When we do the facial detection, we're looking for secondary faces, and it'll actually let you know that somebody else is in the field of view, and it's going to give you an alert that they need to be away from it. Usually, if you're in front of it, at this distance, it's kind of hard for there to be a secondary background person in it. But yes, it's going to alert you if somebody else is in the field of view. Any other questions? Let's see, coming from outdoors and it's 100 degrees. Okay, the answer to that, that's another good question and a common question. So we've done research on this, and there is always a possibility if the temperature outside is a certain higher temperature than your body temperature, your skin acclimates over a certain period of time to that temperature. So if you're coming straight out of a car, it's unlikely. If you've been standing outside for, let's say, 15, 20 minutes, and let's say, for example, it's 107 degrees outside, your skin could get as high as 102 degrees on the surface temperature. So this could read you elevated just because it is looking at that skin temperature. So they may need a certain amount of time to readjust and reacclimate to the indoor temperature if they were out there too long in the hotter temperatures. And by the way, one thing I do want to point out is really the overall intent of what this product is supposed to do more than anything. It's obviously not a COVID detector. It's not a flu detector. It doesn't detect any virus. It detects temperatures. So it's more about odds is really what it is. Can people contaminate people if they have some type of a virus without a fever? Absolutely. This is not going to stop that. What it does stop is the people who are definitively have something not right, who could potentially be a liability, be it the flu, be it even an infection. If they have a temperature of 102, 103 degree fever, they become a liability. You never know. They're going to convulse, are they going to pass out? They have something wrong with them, you're helping them out to let them know, because who goes checking their temperature every morning when they first get up out of bed? So what the whole point of it more than anything is you're walking up to it and it quickly within a second reads your temperature and the person can move away. If a person has a fever, it's going to tell you right away, even with the tolerances that are built into it, which by the way are 0.5 degree Fahrenheit plus or minus. But if you have an actual fever, it's going to flag you. So if you think about it, if you have over 100 people, if even one person has a fever, you've at least isolated that one person. And now you can do a secondary process, whether it be through an oral thermometer with a sleeve that you could change out to get a more internal temperature, or some other process that you deem is appropriate for that location. That is always an important requirement, is to do a secondary process that has another layer of accuracy or of re-verification for it. But if you have a situation, you have 50 people coming in and they're all showing fevers, you got something else obviously going on there that needs to be looked at in that particular situation. So once you do flag somebody, and this is the overall point of these temperature detectors, whether it's the flu, the COVID, or something else, the point is that when you can isolate even one person, as you're aware, one person could potentially infect 4 people, 5 people, who knows? And when you take that person out of that exposure, it's just putting the odds back in your favor to have less infection and less spread of whatever it is that is going on. That is the main point of these devices. Now, one of the things about our device more than anything is we understand that temperature sensing by itself can be a hard justification from a cost perspective when you're trying to install these devices. So by giving those secondary features such as recording, taking snapshots, doing the digital signage, even when it's not a pandemic situation or a flu season, because these could be used in flu season too. There's nothing, why have workers get sick? It may not have to be as deadly of a disease, but it's about productivity too. If you're going to go through this process to prevent people from coming in that can get other people sick, overall makes for a better uptime for any type of facility, plus a better quality of life for the people not getting as sick if they follow these practices going forward. You'll see that people will get sick a lot less, and which has a higher productivity overall. So there's a lot of benefits in other ways, and with the digital signage part, like I said, when it's not being used, welcome to our company, go upstairs to the reception or whatever you choose to do. So going back onto this, what type of technical support is provided? Let me just scroll this up in case I missed something, sorry. Okay, so it says what the next one was, what type of technical support is provided once you purchase these devices? Is there a help desk? You call somebody with questions? Okay, so technical support, we got a 1-900 number, costs $100 a minute. It gets assigned to my billing account. So, no, but technical support, the best thing I do is, for those of you who might be end users on the phone, you go to your local integrator. That's why we have authorized integrators. And this is one of the great things about what we do when we sell these panels, is we only sell them through authorized dealers. And the reason why we do that is because they provide the first level of support. They're trained, they have a know-how, they know how to integrate, they know how to program, they have that expertise versus just going and buying something online. And then it's like, good luck. And most manufacturers don't normally help the end user direct, simply because we're manufacturers. We usually help the integrators or whoever we're working with. So one of the great things about the way we do this through a channel is it's only done through a professional channel. You can't go buying these online. So we rely heavily on our authorized partners to support this product. Now, if in the event you do need help, yes, we do actually help as best as we can with end users. We do recommend they go through their local integrator first, and then if they're not getting the help they need, they're more than welcome to come to us, send in a help ticket. There's a knowledge base and there's a help desk on our website. You can also try to call in for technical support, and we'll do our best to help out in any way we can. That's obviously panel related. If it's installation related, that obviously is going to happen more related to the integrator. Okay, so next question, is there any integration with other software such as ID cards? Can you pair a ID card reader to collect data? The answer is yes. This once again comes into the Reax engine that's built into it. The Reax, just to kind of explain a little bit more about what Reax is, and that's spelled R-E-A-X, it's a full-blown control system engine. It's JavaScript based. We have drag and drop tools that make it write code and create the interface and the looks that you want for it. So normally when you're dealing with devices, people are looking for our protocols, or do we have a driver that works with somebody else? One of the great things about Reax is Reax can mimic just about anybody else's device. So it's not really so much do we have a driver, it's a matter of can we talk or connect to it by whatever you write for it. So we can adapt to just about anybody's device because we can mimic just about anything that you want us to be. So even if a device, sometimes certain devices, they'll have a driver for the XYZ brand, and that's the only brand it seems to work with. Well, there's nothing stopping anyone from putting a protocol into here that mimics that XYZ brand's protocol, and then we end up with that same protocol on our device so that even though we're not the XYZ brand, we look like one to the other product. So it's very powerful in that respect. So the answer is yes, it can be done, but you do need to code it. Let's see here. Hold on. My screen is scrolling up fast and I can't answer these questions. Good questions, by the way, so far. Okay, so next one. Is connection to a central monitor, wireless or Ethernet, HDMI needed? The answer to that is it can be done a few ways. You could do it wirelessly. If you don't want it wireless, you could turn the wireless off. I know some people don't like that. You could do it through the Ethernet port as well, or you could do it through the HDMI. So if you do want to connect to a central monitoring station, probably the best way is through an Ethernet. I'm a bigger fan of Ethernet from security reasons. I'm not a big fan of Wi-Fi because you never know how good the connection is, or how, next thing you know, you have 50 people in a room with Wi-Fi and somehow you get bad reception. The Wi-Fi works in it just fine, but you're bound by Wi-Fi, rules and standards of how that's going to connect up. Ethernet, I'm a bigger fan of it. The 10-inch does do PoE, which makes for a cleaner installation. The 15 and 21 needs a power supply. If you have an Ethernet, it'll communicate. You serve up a web page, and you could see all the data from it and do whatever you want with it. Let's see, next question. How long do they have to be in air conditioning for them to have a normal temperature? That's hard to say. Typically, the body adjusts pretty quick. I don't know, like right now it's reading my body temperature. If I create a lot of friction on my hands, wasn't enough to get it up there, but it went up to like 99 and it started resettling back down. So you can see it takes a lot. And then as soon as you think you get there, your body re-regulates it pretty quick. If we go to that example with 107 degree and your body temperature was at 102, I'd imagine your body's pretty hot at that point. You could possibly have to wait 10 minutes. It is a possibility for that. If it's something more like coming in from a very chilled air conditioned room or coming in from somewhere else, your body adapts pretty quick. If you've been working out, you do not get a fever from working out. It might fluctuate maybe 0.5 degree Fahrenheit at most. If anything, your sweat might actually make you read cooler. So if anything, if somebody's coming in, you want to make certain they don't have any sweat or moisture on their head, because it'll act as a barrier and confuse potentially readings based on how sweaty they are. Hopefully that answers it best, but yes, some people ask, can it be used outdoors? And, with outdoors, once again, if the outdoor temperature is exceeding the body temperature and based on how long they've been out there for, it's going to read elevated. You'd have to keep it away from sunlight, so you'd have to put it in a tent or something. But if the temperature outdoors starts going above like 95 degrees Fahrenheit, it could become a little bit of a challenge to get some accurate readings off of it. So let's see. If you have more than one device, how will the data from each of the devices be collected and stored? So what happens is these all have databases built into them. And coming out of the factory, we don't collect any data. Just I'll throw this out there for HIPAA reasons. We don't collect data. We don't push it back to Aurora. The code in here is 100% written by us. So we're a US company. This is not, even though we have a partnership with China making the panels and the hardware itself, the actual code that's living inside of it is all from Aurora, and we're in full control of it. As far as that goes, I can tell you right now, we don't upload code to us. We don't take any code. We don't do anything with the information whatsoever. And it can be locked down. The only thing that can happen, and this is up to the facility, is what you do with the information that you program in. So it's really more up to the installation process of what you're doing with information, what you're collecting, and how you're transmitting it and how secure it actually becomes. So while you can store information locally on here, you can also push it to other places. So for example, every one of these units is a master and a slave. So they're brains right now. I can even make a screen up on here, and I can make it so that I can say, for example, turn the lights on and off, or turn this display up over there on. It's a full-blown control system is really what it is. This thing, anything that lets it control it, it will control. This can control your temperature in a building if you wanted it to. So this is the equivalent of having a full-blown automated control system in this one panel for what you're paying for a temperature sensor. So it's very powerful. So when you have multiples of these together, this panel can go grab this panel's information and vice versa. So you can create a redundancy in the systems if you choose to do so. So I can actually, let's say we have 3 panels. I can have a panel here, and a panel here. I can have this panel going after this panel and this panel's information, this one going after these 2, and this one going after those 2. Now, if I go to the web page that's built into here, I can create a web page that shows me all 3 panels with their video showing on it if I choose to do so, because it's multicasted streaming video that I can pull into it. And then I could do the same if I go into this address and the same if I go into that address. So let's say if this panel fails, I could go into this panel, still grab this panel's information along with the secondary one, and you create a redundancy situation. Or maybe you don't want to have the data being handled in just one of the panels. Maybe you want a centralized controller box. You can do that too. We work with any third-party control system, and we also make our own as well. And you can have those go out to all 3 panels and do no coding inside these panels, or minimize the coding where you're just doing slight manipulations of the data in order for it to be collected by a secondary system. So hopefully that answers that question. Next question. I'm interested in accessibility features of the technology for the person being screened and for the screeners looking at the data that's being collected. Will this be compatible with assistive technology used by people with disabilities? Okay, so for the disability, that's once again on how it's programmed and also how it's mounted. So there's a few ways to deal with this. Based on the height that you do this at will determine the height of the people. If you're dealing in a situation where you have a lot of disabled people who come in on a regular basis, then you have 2 choices. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll do 2 panels, one at one height and another one at a different height to deal with children and people who are in wheelchairs. Okay, so that's one way to deal with it. If you're in a facility where maybe every few hundred people you get somebody in a wheelchair, it may be in your best interest to just send them straight to the secondary process rather than doing the primary process, because you have to weigh what you're doing. Is it worth buying 2 of them relative to for the amount of flow that you have of disabled people versus having just the one? But if you do have a facility where you get a lot of variances between kids and adults and a lot of variances between heights, then that's where you may want to think about having 2 mounted at 2 different location heights as far as that goes. As far as other things go that relate to the compliance, and this is where the bigger screens come into play. Whoops, sorry about that. The bigger screens come in handier for the potentially visually impaired, where they could see but they can't see well, okay? That means you could put bigger messages on the screen. You know, please move to your right, please move to your left. Now, if they're totally blind, you can put audible messages up on here and say, you know, please move to your left, please move to your right. So that's another way you could deal with it. And such as for the deaf, you can, once again, put visual messages for the deaf or people who have a harder time reading smaller things, and then it can deal with those type of issues. So the answer is yes, we do have provisions, but it's really up to how you customize the screen, because it is customizable, so you can make it, you know, default out of the box. We have some basic functionalities, but if you really want to enhance it for your environment, you need to do a little bit of just work. It's not hard to do, but it just needs to be done. Let's see, how sturdy is the pole mount? Can students easily knock it over? Okay, so first off is the durability. Okay, I'm knocking on it with my knuckle. This protectant is not right up against the LCD glass. It's actually about 1/8 of an inch away from it. So it would take quite a hard impact to break this. Now, can somebody knock it over? It does meet the compliance for the tipping. So, but if somebody knocks it over hard enough, I mean, right now you can see I knocked into it and it's still staying up. So it's like a weeble wobble. But you push it hard enough, it is going to go over. I mean, unless you bolt it to the ground. Left to right is a lot harder to make it fall over. I mean, here, I'm going to tilt it like this. And you can see it's not the easiest to knock over. I'll push it a little bit more back. So it does have a very good tipping ratio to it. But there is always the possibility, you know, somebody knocks into it, you know, you get to the point of no return, and even the weight of the base. I mean, here I'm pushing it all the way against the wall now, and it still managed to stay up. So it's got a pretty good balance, but if somebody crashes into it, it is going over. And by the way, the cable does run down the pole to the base. So it does stay clean in that respect, if you were wondering. I know you saw me hook up the HDMI cable before. I just did that out of convenience because I was too lazy to run it up a pole. So I just hooked it up really quick just to demonstrate the HDMI. Now, if you choose, you could put, it is a round pole. You could, you know, purchase the Olympic size weight plates. The base is 25 pounds. So if you wanted to stack another 25 pounds onto it, You could always just take a weight, slide it down onto the base, and it would make it just that much harder because now you're dealing with more weight to knock it over. So you could stack a 25-pound weight on it or a few weights on it if you want to just make it smaller and neater and just build it up a little bit. So that's one way you could deal with it, and that'll work. And then when you're not using it, you can then just lift some weights and work out. Dual purpose. Always thinking of something. Okay, any other questions? I don't see anything else on the chat thing. So anything else? I'll take that as a no since I don't see anything.
Hey, Jeff, you guys have anything else you want to ask Paul while we have him?
Without getting into pricing, Paul, I know some of your competition and things is quite quick to have a subscription fee on top of hardware costs and things like that. What does your model look like from that perspective?
Okay, so I can't speak on behalf of the competition. There's really not a lot of tablets out there right now doing temperature sensing. There's one I know of right now that's allegedly made now by over 30 brands. I kind of like that one. It's one of my favorites. It's an 8-inch tablet out there. I know people have seen it. It's sometimes, depending on who you're buying it from, it costs more than ours, and other places it costs less than ours. You find it on Alibaba. You find it all over the place. It's made by a Chinese manufacturer. We actually know who the vendor is, the real vendor is. They always ask us to buy it, and we're like, you're damaged goods, and we have no purpose in using your product. It's just that. It's a damage. So I'll break it down into a few ways. One, we don't charge for licensing or how many units you have or future firmware releases. The only thing we do charge for is, like, for example, we're working on a two-way intercomming feature. That might be an option feature that you get an enabling fee for. The base, the digital signage, the web server, all that just comes as part of the base unit, the React engine. That's all built into our cost. There's just other advanced options that are not the common options that everybody uses. And that just costs us development time and money, and because of that, we charge for it. But it'll be a fair price, and it'll be enabling. So one of the things we're trying to work on is a two-way video conferencing, so that way a remote support can have a two-way video chat with somebody. So that would be an example of something that might cost a little bit more, or something that's just a little bit more far-fetched. That'd be about the only thing right now that I could think of off the top of my head that would be an extra cost. Other than that, no, we're trying to keep it at a good, fair price, give a lot of bang for the buck, give it a secondary value with its integration capability and its secondary things that it can do. So even if one day no one wants to use temperature sensors, it's a control automation panel. It's a digital signage display. It's whatever you want. It's welcome to the so-and-so company. So that was part of what we were trying to do more than anything, is to give it a secondary purpose in life. So this way, it's not just, you use it for this and you put it in a closet and then you feel like you wasted your money. We want to give everybody a very good value for what it is, and to know that they could use this in a conference room eventually. You could take the sensor off the top, use it in a conference room, and hang it on a wall, and this will automate your entire conference room. So that in itself, you would pay probably the same or more just to do that alone in a conference room itself. So there's a lot of value built into it. Now, getting back to our competition, I've seen only a few out there. One of them is an 8-inch panel. 30 companies are claiming they're the manufacturer. None of them actually are. We know who the real manufacturer is, and that's a big problem, because who's writing the code? Who's supporting it? Where does the warranty start and stop? What happens with the thing? And then you get into the HIPAA compliance. I know it's got facial recognition in it. Okay, that's great. And it could store, I think, up to 30,000 faces locally on the device. But what happens to that data? And who's in control of the code? Well, it's a Chinese company. So right there, right off the bat, you already get your biggest problems with HIPAA compliance is you've got a foreign country taking facial recognition, and no one knows what this code does or doesn't do, and there's no access for the HIPAA compliance in it regardless. The other thing I saw on those type of panels, which I would point out, is they put a nice big bar to flash red or green or white based on what process it's in. We find that most people don't want this data up on here to the end user. They just want the end user to walk up, align themselves, and leave it to the secondary operator to tell them whether they have an issue or not. Because if all of a sudden this thing flashes 103 degrees or even a fail, the person behind them is going to do this. Oh crap, did you see that person over there? So that's not a good thing either. So, it's funny, when we first developed this, we thought it was great having all this information on here until we started doing real world, these type of one-on-ones and things like that. And that was the most common thing, is people would say, can you get that information off the screen and put it on the secondary? And that was the first thing we started coding was, you better believe we can. So we actually learned a lot from different people, different companies, of what people want, what they don't want, and so forth. So that's part of it. The customizability is a very important factor when it comes to that. I'm sorry, I'm a popular person, as you could tell. So these are many of the things that you do run into with it. So I can't speak on behalf of all the different brands. I saw another brand out there. I'll name them. I think it was Samsung. They came out with a kiosk. The thing is more than twice as much as ours. Has no customizability, and it's this huge kiosk that's fire engine red, that's this big and this big. And the comments we saw on it was like, oh my God, that's like obtrusive and obnoxious. So, to each their own. There's a right product for the right application. I can only really focus mostly on what I know ours does and what we're capable of and what our intent is. So, and that's been a big part of our intent, is the integration element of it, and having not just one small panel, but having, a larger array. And we're working on other products and technologies. So you'll see over time, we're not stopping just with this. We're expanding upon it. And by the way, and it's official, we did create an AVIXA course, which is basically an Infocom course on this technology. It'll be worth 2 CTS credits, and it goes over, it's not really so much focused on using and understanding our product, it's actually more focused on understanding the technology, the best methods to use it, and so on. So we did actually develop a course just for that alone, and it's going to be available in the next, I think, 2 weeks in the AVIXA course planning. So we just got the approval on it, and that'll be coming soon as well. So we want to be known as a leader in this industry with doing this technology. Also, it doesn't really require calibration. Not a question anybody asked, but I'm going to throw it out there. And no, you do not need a black body on it either in order to get it to stop drifting. It doesn't have a drift because of the type of technology that it uses. Somebody asked a question, does it have HDMI in or out only? It has HDMI out only, is what it has. So, and that's what I demonstrated earlier when I hooked it up to this monitor. Any other questions?
All right. I think, Paul, I appreciate all your help, and I think we all learned a lot. Jeff and the ELB team and clients, if you guys have direct questions, please focus them to us or Paul, and we're happy to help. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.